Shri Gurubhyo Namaha children, let us continue with the lesson The Enemy. So we just saw that the doctor had performed the surgery and he had removed the bullet from the body of this prisoner of war. But certainly I do not want this man to live, he thought. So he felt the pulse and he thought the pulse is sufficient enough for the person to survive because he has performed the surgery and he is safe. But still there was another thought in his mind. I do not want this man to survive. The reason is he is an American. Americans are enemies of Japanese people. No more anesthetic, he told Anna. And he told his wife, don't keep any more anesthetic near his nostril. He turned as swiftly as though he had never paused from his medicines. He chose a small vial and from it filled a hypodermic and thrust it into the patient's left arm. Paused. Stopped for a while. He has performed the surgery. He just paused for a while. He stopped for a while just to think over next what he has to do. Then what does he do? He chose a small vial. Vial is nothing but a small bottle. You would have seen that the injection medicine is in a small bottle that he takes. And from it filled a hypodermic, an injection. So he has to be given an injection because the surgery is over at that time and thrust it into the patient's left arm. Then putting down the needle, he took the man's wrist again. The pulse under his fingers fluttered, flapped. So he was able to feel that there was irregularity in the beating of pulse, but slowly, because the injection was administered, it became stronger. Once or twice and then grew stronger. So now the pulse became stronger. This man will live in spite of all, he said to Hannah and sighed. Sighed. Breathe deeply. Breathe deeply. In fact, in disappointment, only when you are disappointed, you will have a huge sigh. So, what is the disappointment for Dr. Sado? The operation was success and this man is going to survive. It's a disappointment because he is a prisoner of war. He is his enemy. The young man woke, so weak, his blue eyes so terrified, when he imagined. So surgery was over, then the man was sleeping. The next day the man woke up and he was a little bit terrified to see where he was lying. Perceived where he was, that Hannah felt compelled to apologize. Compelled, forced. Apologize. Ask forgiveness. You might be wondering, having saved his life, why should ever this Japanese lady ask for his forgiveness? Okay, that is the etiquette and manners. Okay, when a person without knowing, without his own knowledge, without his own realization, when you rescue him and have him in your house, and when he wakes up and when he feels so perturbed, it is the etiquette and manners of the host of the house to ask for his forgiveness and then explain to him what had happened. This is similarly what Hannah is doing here. Hannah felt compelled to apologize. She herself served him, for none of the servants would enter the room. Then he has to be fed. She asked the servants. Nobody was ever willing to do any service for this American prisoner of war. So she herself came to feed this man. When she came in the first time, she saw him summon his small strength to be prepared for some fearful thing. Summon, call. So collect all his energy and he tried to call. Then she said, "Don't be afraid." She begged him softly. She requested him, "See, don't be afraid. You are in safe care. You are in a safe place. Don't be worried," she told him, because she has to build some confidence in him also, because already seeing the appearance of Hannah, he knows pretty well he is in the hands of a Japanese family, and he knows pretty well that Japanese are the enemies of Americans. When that is the thing, naturally he will be so disturbed. So Hannah tries to make him feel comfortable there. "How come you speak English?" he gasped. "I was a long time in America," she replied. So he was so shocked and he was so surprised to hear Hannah speaking English. So immediately he was asking and he felt very comfortable when Hannah was speaking to him in English, because being English, being an American. So naturally when you go to a place, when you hear somebody speaking your own language, for example, you go to a different state, there they speak different language, usually their mother tongue, their state language. So you will always feel uncomfortable. Suppose you find a person speaking your own language, you would feel so comfortable. Okay, the same thing is the feeling of this American soldier also, because Hannah spoke to him in English. She saw that he wanted to reply to that, but he could not. So she knelt and fed him gently from the porcelain spoon. He ate unwillingly, but still he ate. So he was not able to reply to what she said, because he was very weak. He had lost lot of blood as he was washed ashore, and surgery also would have caused lot of loss of blood. So he was totally very weak and he was not in a position to speak. So Hannah just bent towards him and she started feeding. So though he was not willing to eat, but still he has to eat to gain strength. So unwillingly he started having the food that was fed by Hannah. "Now you will soon be strong," she said, not liking him and yet moved to comfort him. Comfort him, console him. Even she doesn't like him. It's all a pain for her, because he is an American in the house. Suppose the news goes to the General Takima, definitely he will send soldiers to arrest Dr. Sado as well as Hannah. And what will happen to the children? All these thoughts are going on in the minds of Dr. Sado as well as Hannah. Though she doesn't like, but still she nurses him, she feeds him, and as well as comforts him. He did not answer. When Sado came in the third day after the operation, he found the young man sitting up, his face bloodless with the effort. So, second day after the surgery, Dr. Sado did not visit him, but third day he came and he was able to see this soldier sitting up. He got so scared. After undergoing such a major surgery, the bullet almost close to near to the kidney, and this man is sitting up. Just imagine, it is at the back, lower back. And if he is going to sit and give pressure, what would happen to the injury over there, the surgery which was conducted there? So he just shouted at him. "Lie down," Sado cried. "Do you want to die?" So he was so harsh. He was telling, "Lie down." Who told you to sit up? He was telling. He forced the man down gently and strongly and examined the wound. "You may kill yourself if you do this," sort of thing, he scolded. So he was telling, you will kill yourself if you are going to sit like this for a longer time. Now you have undergone a surgery, you are supposed to lie down and take rest. And he said this very strongly to this American. What are you going to do with me? The boy muttered. He looked just now barely 17. Are you going to hand me over? Barely? Hardly. Dr. Sado was telling, if you are going to sit, you will die. And further, this man was asking, what are you going to do? This prisoner was asking, what are you going to do with me? Are you going to hand me over? He was asking. At that time, Dr. Sado noticed that this boy would be just 17, around 17 years. Just see, at a very young age, caught by the Japanese soldiers, tortured by the Japanese soldiers. And because of his young age and his will and strength, somehow he managed to escape. And that is how he was shot. And then the soldiers would have thought, Japanese soldiers would have thought that they had shot him and the sea will take care of him. But this boy was very lucky and he was washed ashore near Dr. Sado's house to be rescued. For a moment, Sado did not answer. He finished his examination and then pulled the silk quilt over the man. I do not know myself what I shall do with you, he said. I ought, of course, to give you to the police. You are a prisoner of war. No, do not tell me anything. Then he said, I myself don't know what to do with you. And in fact, you are a prisoner of war. And then he added, don't tell anything about you to me. He put up his hand as he saw the young man was about to speak. So young man was about to tell something. At that time he said, yes, hush, don't tell anything about yourself. Do not even tell me your name unless I ask it. See the attitude of Dr. Sado. He didn't want to develop any bonding with the soldier. Okay, he has saved his life. Now the next point is he has to hand him over to the police once he becomes strong. But he is so sure that he should not get any information about this soldier. They looked at each other for a moment and then the young man closed his eyes and turned his face to the wall. Okay, he whispered, his mouth a bitter line. So this young man, he closed his eyes and he turned towards the wall and he laid down and he just accepted. Okay, he said, and he became very quiet. Outside the door, Hannah was waiting for Sado. He saw at once that she was in trouble. So outside, Hannah was waiting, his wife was waiting to tell him something very important and she was in deep trouble. Sado, Yumi tells me the servants feel they cannot stay if we hide this man here anymore, she said. She tells me that they are saying that you and I were so long in America. So, now what is the problem with Hannah? She comes and tells Dr. Sado, Yumi says all the servants want to leave because we are hiding an American prisoner of war inside the house. And suppose they are going to have him, and the reason that they say is this couple were in America for a long time, and so they have a soft corner towards this particular prisoner of war who is an American. So that is what the idea that these people are getting. That we have forgotten to think of our own country first. They think we like Americans. So what does Hannah say? Now the servants are thinking that since we were in America for a long time, we have forgotten that we are Japanese, and that is why we are so caring and concerned towards this American prisoner of war. It is not true, Sado said harshly, sternly. He was losing his temper to hear the way the servants were speaking against the master of the house, the master who pays them every month. Americans are our enemies, but I have been trained not to let a man die if I can help it. So I have been trained. Doctors are trained to save the lives of the patients. They take a vow that whatever be the condition, to the fullest extent, they will work to save the lives of the patient who have come under their custody. The servants cannot understand that, she said anxiously, she said worriedly. No, he agreed. Neither seemed able to say more, and somehow the household dragged on. Household here is nothing but the family. It just dragged on. Somehow they were managing the family, though the servants were murmuring, talking against Dr. Sado and his wife, but still they were working because they were so faithful towards their masters. The servants grew more watchful, alert. Now they started watching every movement of the couple. What are they doing? What is that? The condition of the patient inside. Who goes inside that room? Who comes out? What is that they speak about that prisoner? All these things the servants are watching in a very alert manner. The courtesy was as careful as ever, but their eyes were cold upon the pair to whom they hired. Courtesy, politeness. They continued to be polite. They were kind, they were humble, but still they were very watchful. It is clear what our master ought to do, the old gardener said one morning. So what happened is there was an old gardener who was There was an old gardener in their house. So that gardener started speaking one morning. It is clear what our master ought to do, must do. The old gardener said one morning. He had worked with flowers all his life and had been a specialist too in moss. For Sado's father, he had made one of the finest moss gardens in Japan, sweeping the bright green carpet constantly so that not a leaf or a pine needle marred the velvet of its surface. Marred, destroyed. So in such a way, he had made the moss garden. It was just like a velvet and the finest garden in Japan. My old master's son knows very well what he ought to do, he now said, pinching a bud from the bush as he spoke. Pinching, nipping. Just removing it. When the man was so near death, why did he not let him bleed? So what was the concern of this gardener? He was telling, when the man was nearly bleeding, why did he not allow the man to die? He was so worried. And he was telling, my young master knows what he ought to do. He was speaking like this also. So what is the concern of the gardener? He wants the master to get rid of this particular prisoner of war. Let's continue in the next lesson, children. To receive our online lessons, please press the subscribe button and you will receive the latest updates. Thank you.